Hello, my name is Andrew, and today we're doing a comparison between the Vivo Barefoot Tracker AT Leather and the Vivo Barefoot MAGNA Escape. Let's check them out. So with the Tracker Leather AT, it's got Vivo Barefoot standard wide toe box. It's got a pretty good amount of room. It's not extra wide. And it does just have a little bit of taper towards the end, which I think Vivo Barefoot tends to run just a little bit long because of this. They're just adding a little bit of pointiness towards the end, so that's something to consider. But I think overall they run true to size. And for the updated Tracker, they added a wraparound guard all the way around the boot, which adds a ton of water resistance without having to have that waterproof membrane, which can make the boot really hot, especially if you're getting into higher temperatures, 60, 65, 70. In terms of the upper of the boot, it's got these really nice lace locks here and then two quick lace hooks on the top for easy on and off. It's got a gusseted tongue, which again is really good for waterproofing. You can get these boots pretty much up to here without water coming in. If they're just soaked over and over and over again for a long period of time, they can eventually come through. The water can come through. But overall, I found these to be one of the most waterproof boots that I have. And in terms of the back, it's a little bit more slim. So I'd say, especially when you first get them, there's a little more pressure here. But then as I've worn them out, the leather's gotten a lot softer. So they feel a lot better than when I first started wearing them. And then in the inside of them, they're lined with a lot of leather, which feels nice, smooth, soft, good for longer hikes. And then deeper in, there's a cotton lining, which I'm not so fond about. I think cotton can have problems in terms of moisture regulation, but I think this boot is going to be something that you'd use more for lower temperatures or mid temperatures, so it's not as much of an issue. If you used it, up into like 80 degrees, that's when the cotton starts to become a problem, so that's something to note. Also, one of the reasons that they've added this guard here is because they've taken away the stitch sole, and there are pros and cons to that. A stitch sole is going to be more durable, which is nice, obviously, but also when you put stitching in, that's a place where the water can come through. So Vivo's thinking, I think, with this is that they've added the guard, which gives a little bit more for the rubber to grab onto, a little bit more firm surface. And so I think that they're hoping long term that this will kind of be like an in-between or best of both worlds solution where it's more waterproof, especially on the bottom of the boot, but then it's also a little more durable because there's some more structure here. So we'll see how it goes long term. I haven't had them long enough to know whether that's going to make a difference in terms of the rubber separating, but if you do ever have this happen, you can use some shoe goo. You just put it into the crack, clamp it lightly, for 24 hours, and usually that can fix most minor problems. In terms of the sole, it's 6.5 millimeters, and it uses Vivo's new AT tread, which stands for all terrain. It's got a decent amount of space in between there, so it can handle some slippery hills, and especially it starts to open up once you bend the boot. But then the lugs are a little bit wider, and they've also got a chevron shape. So when you're going up hills, this kind of works like a claw, giving you traction, and then going down, it does the same thing. Lugs are in the reverse direction. Then towards the back of the boot, they're a little bit thicker. So if you're going on really rocky terrain, your heel is usually where you're coming down when you're walking in boots. And so this will just make them last a little bit longer, provide a little bit more traction and durability. It's kind of interesting because the lugs are 4 millimeters, so they've got a fair amount of beefiness to them, but then the midsole is 2.5. So you can see when I press it here, there's a lot of flexibility and you can get a lot of ground feel coming up through here in between the lugs, which is nice for a lot of texture when you're going on trails. I think in terms of going on roads, the lugs are dense enough that they can feel just a little bit clunky, a little bit hard. And one thing that really helps with that for me is adding like a soft insole in there. This is just a basic wool felt insole. It's what I use in pretty much all my cool weather boots, and it works really well. You can even get them a bit thicker if you have a boot like this or the Escape, which we're going to talk about. Add some padding without really affecting ground feel. And it also is temperature regulating, moisture wicking, all that good stuff. Antimicrobial, so they smell good long term. But yeah, anyways, I also use Injinji merino wool toe socks. These are the only socks I've used for like 7 years because they spread out your toes, get some airflow in there, and they can work really well with a wool felt insole for temperature regulation, moisture wicking, etc. But taking like the Vivo Barefoot MAGNA Escape, there are definitely a lot of differences with this boot. Starting off, it's got a little bit wider toe box. I would say this is probably the widest style that Vivo Barefoot has. The Escape tends to have almost an extra wide profile. Like I said, it does towards the very tip just get a little bit tapered, but it's kind of straight on the side, which I like. Doesn't taper up too much there. And the upper on the Escape is kind of like a medium softness leather, which I really like. It's got some good durability, medium thickness, but then it's very soft, you know. I kind of like these ones because they look like Godzilla, you know, which is cool. But then the Magna series has this stretchy slip-on collar, which is great because you can put them on and off really quickly, which I love going in and out of the house for something thinner like the Magna FG. This is my favorite barefoot shoe of all time for all season. And it's got the FG sole on it, so kind of like a good mid-weight, do-everything boot. But the Escape is more rugged, like I said, although you've got the slip-on collar, which is great for trails because you can also slip it on if you have, or off if you have like rocks in there, which is a major annoyance for hiking, you know, because in normal boots, you have to like lace them and unlace them every time you get a little tiny pebble in there, and that can get really tedious if you're going on like an all-day hike. So anyways, it's a wool blend as well, and it's ribbed, so this helps create a little bit of space in between your socks and your skin to create some more airflow, you know, and help move temperature out of the boot so that they don't get hot and sweaty. And then that extends down to around here, so you get a little breathability on the top of your foot as well. In terms of waterproofing, they're not quite as waterproof as the Tracker AT leather because this opening will let in water here. So if you go above about there, you know, water can splash in, or if you splash in a puddle, it can splash over the top of the shoe. So that's something to consider. But because of the wool, because of the leather, they do dry out really well. And then for the laces, nice beefy lace here. You've got some metal grommets to hold the front of the shoe so you can get it locked in the way that you want. And then some straps here for a little bit of extra support and durability. And basically what I do is that I just tie them and then I never touch the laces again for the rest of the time that I own the boots. That's also true for the Magna FG. I've like never tied them again because you can just slip in and out, you know. In terms of the sole, it's 9.5 millimeters, so this is one of the heaviest boots that I would consider still barefoot because you can get a lot of good sensitivity in here. It's also 2.5 millimeters like the AT sole. So if you're on, you know, medium-sized rocks and stuff like that, you'll get it coming in through the lugs. But then the lugs are 7 millimeters, so they're very beefy. This is the best tread, in my opinion, for going on really rocky, rough, shifting type of terrain or deeper, steeper mud, you know, where you need a lot of grip. Because it can do both of those things really well. Also, side note, it's stitched, which is great for durability. But like I mentioned, it could potentially sacrifice a little bit of water resistance. And then back to the sole, the treads also kind of have a chevron shape, but they're just a little bit bigger. So they've got enough density to handle just about everything while still being really flexible pretty much everywhere in the sole, which is great. They are more dense, kind of like the AT in the back. And this is another reason why when you take the Escape out on roads, it can feel just a little bit clunky, you know, in the back. It doesn't have as much agility as something like the Gobi, you know, which is 3.7 millimeters thin, or even the Magna FG, which I think also feels really good on roads. So you can do it for little portions of roads, but I wouldn't use this boot if you want something for like urban casual, you know, because it's just gonna feel pretty hard walking around all day on concrete. The Escape sole is made from Michelin rubber, so I think it just has a slight edge and grippiness compared to Vivo's stock rubber, although Vivo has gotten really good over the years in terms of grip from where they started out. I think the rubber used to be a little bit more slippy feeling, and now it's got a nice tackiness to it. They're really catching up to like Vibram and Michelin. But it is cool to see them putting like a car tire tread on a barefoot shoe, and I really like the grip on these. But one last note on the Escape is that it does have more weight to it, so if you're on a long backpacking trip, you know, even though it's got the lighter weight upper, which definitely helps cut some weight and just add a little more flexibility, you know, you could start to feel it in terms of overall poundage. And one last thing I'll mention, which is applicable to any of the Magna uppers for Vivo Barefoot, is that this strap here, when you first get them, it can feel like it puts a little bit of pressure on your ankles. But I found over time, like as you keep using them and bending them, it kind of opens up and becomes softer, and then it's not really an issue maybe after the first month or so. All right, so that's a quick comparison between the Vivo Barefoot Tracker AT Leather and the Magna Escape. But if you'd like to support the channel, you can shop with the referral links down below. Browse and filter more products with the Shoe Finder tool, my website barefootwear.org, or watch my zero drop transition video to learn more about barefooting. Finally, if you have a question about the Vivo Barefoot Tracker AT Leather or Magna Escape, or about barefoot shoes in general, let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching. Catch you next time. Peace.